Hi everyone, I'm Ashley at the Silver Bay Public Library, and I'm here to read you a story today. Or shall I say, to continue our story from last time. As each week I'll be reading one or so chapters. Well, 3 times a week I'll be reading one or so chapters, so 3 chapters a week, at least, of different chapter books that are geared towards a little bit of an older age, but anyone can feel free to enjoy these stories. The book we are currently reading is Floors by Patrick Carman. And last time we left off, we finished chapter 1. So if you haven't already seen that video, go check it out on our YouTube channel, along with the rest of our lovely storytime videos. And we will pick up on chapter 2 for this week. Chapter 2 is titled The Purple Box. So, let's get right in. Betty was staring at Leo, her bill only a few inches away, quacking softly in his face. Her breath smelled like daffodils. "You've been eating the flowers on the grounds again, haven't you?" Leo asked. "Mr. Phipps would have a fit if he finds out. I've been blaming it on the crows, but now you'll have to come clean." Betty almost seemed to understand what Leo was saying. She dropped her head and let out what could only be described as a long sigh in the form of a dying quack. "I'm only kidding, I won't tell." Betty brightened and moved a step closer, digging her orange bill into the front pocket of Leo's overalls. "You're all going on a diet. Look how cramped I am in this little corner." Betty glanced at Leo then, and if the boy hadn't known better, he'd have said the duck was scowling at him. No duck likes a diet. But it was true that the duck elevator felt unusually cramped. The long ride down seemed to last forever, and the ducks were restless, wobbling back and forth on their webbed feet and climbing all over Leo, looking for Pumpernickel. When the duck elevator opened into the lobby, Leo told Betty to wait, which she did. When Betty waited, they all waited, and this gave Leo time to crawl out and find Merganser's walking stick. It was formed from one long, gnarled limb, its handle smooth and round. Without it, the ducks wouldn't follow. There seemed to be magic in the walking stick, and after taking it from its closet, Leo returned to the duck elevator, stood before the group of them, and moved the walking stick across the floor. The 6 ducks marched out, Betty at the front. It wasn't until they were all in the duck elevator that Leo saw the purple box. "What's this?" he whispered, barely hearing his own words. The ducks hadn't grown larger after all. There had simply been less space for them to stand in. Leo leaned inside for a closer look and saw that the purple box was 6 or 7 inches tall and a foot wide, with a seal on top that could not be mistaken. There's a picture of it. "Merganser," said Leo, edging into the small space so he could touch the mystery box. "Get these ducks out of the lobby this instant," yelled Miss Sparks. "Move it, move it, move it." The ducks were alarmed by her voice, and Leo began to lose control of the situation. The new bellboy, having gathered his courage, was inching his way toward the duck elevator. Leo couldn't let anyone see what he'd found, but Betty had a look on her face that said, "I am seconds away from biting someone's ankle." Leo slammed the duck elevator door shut with a pow before the purple box could be seen, and then pushed the up lever, sending the contraption on a 5-minute journey back to the roof. That was the final straw for Betty and her pals. She flew up to Miss Sparks' desk and nearly crashed into her beehive hairdo. The rest of the ducks went into hysterics, flapping all over the room like dive bombers. "Open the door," Miss Sparks screamed, waving her arms as if 1,000 wild bats were on a crash course with her face. The bellboy bolted back to the lobby entrance and pushed a small frame against the big glass door. It was mayhem in the lobby when Leo's father arrived from the basement, looked at Leo, then reached out his hand for the walking stick. Clarence Fillmore was a towering figure with a calming effect. He whistled 3 times fast, then tapped the marble stick onto the floor, or tapped the stick onto the marble floor, and walked out the door. The ducks flew outside and landed in a bird bath way too small for so many large birds, where they huddled together, waiting for their promised walk through the grounds. "Remy, feathers, now," said Miss Sparks, which sent the bellboy tearing around the lobby, picking up all the feathers that had come loose. From this and Miss Sparks' earlier command, Leo realized the new boy's name had to be Remy, but there was no time for formal introduction as he skirted past and out onto the front steps. Mr. Fillmore got an earful from Miss Sparks about the inadequate skill of his duck-walking son, but Leo didn't seem to mind. All he could think about was the purple box, which was safe, at least for the moment. What did it mean? Where did it come from? And why did it have Merganser D whip its head emblazoned on its top? Leo could think of little else besides the purple box as he walked the long and winding path in the hotel grounds. Betty and the rest of the ducks waddled contentedly behind him in a line, following Merganser's walking stick to the furthest reaches of the ground. At the most distant corner was a small pond where all the ducks went swimming and bobbing for who knew what. While they did, Leo sat on a stone bench wishing they could get out of the work he'd have to do when he returned to the hotel. Why so glum? Leo jumped at the sound of the slow Texas drawl behind him. It was Lillian Pompadour, who'd been staying at the hotel for almost 3 months. She was fabulously rich, or so Leo had been told, hiding out from a Texas social scene she'd grown weary of. "Oh, I'm not glum," said Leo. "I'm just walking the ducks." Lillian Pompadour had an unidentifiable animal fur wrapped around her neck, wore lots of makeup, and carried a tiny dog under one arm. Leo could not help wondering how the dog must feel about the fur draped around its owner, but he kept silent, staring at the pond, and hoping he could avoid a long conversation with the perpetually bored Miss Pompadour. The dog's name was Heinie, and he would sooner bite someone's hand than allow the slightest bit of petting. He also had the annoying habit of pooping in the hotel hallways, which didn't seem to bother Miss Pompadour in the slightest. This would set off the alarm in the basement with a ticker tape from Pilar with a message that usually said something along the lines of, "Heinie alert, clean up on floor 7. Heinie started barking. He wasn't a fan of Betty and her clan, but they were safely in the water, so Leo didn't mind when Miss Pompadour set the little guy down and let him run around the pond as if he'd lost his mind. "I do hope Mr. Whippet will come back soon," Miss Pompadour drawled, fanning herself in the morning sun with a fashion magazine. "Where do you suppose he's gone off to?" Leo shrugged, still hoping he could avoid a long encounter with the bored socialite. "Well, no matter," she said. "Still, it's a very odd thing, the way he disappeared like that. Do you suppose he's all right?" "Sure he is," Leo asked, without even thinking, but the thought had crossed his mind that Merganser had almost never left the hotel grounds. How would he do out in the real world? "He built this place," Miss Pompadour said, looking back at the off-kilter hotel. "Like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and that's been standing for almost 1,000 years. Maybe he knows something we don't." I'm sure he does," said Leo, always the first to come to Mr. Whippet's defense. Miss Pompadour called for Heinie and picked him up. "Heinie and the ducks don't see eye to eye. I believe I'll keep walking. Good luck with Betty." Leo watched as Lillian Pompadour walked the winding path to the hotel, then his eye caught sight of Mr. Phipps out by the main gate. A black town car was pulling away, merging into a busy New York street. "This is an odd day," said Leo, not talking to anyone in particular, though Betty honked from the pond as if she agreed. Leo watched as Miss Sparks appeared at the gate as well, having come from the hotel. He couldn't hear what was being said, but it was obvious from her gestures that she wanted Mr. Phipps away from the gate and back to work in the garden. Leo gathered the ducks, his heart racing, and walked back to the lobby. It was all he could do not to pull their waddling butts behind him, because ducks were very slow about their business. It could take quite a while to get them back into the duck elevator. Unfortunately, Miss Sparks left the main gate and headed for the hotel at precisely the same moment Leo left the pond. She went by a different winding path, but emerged from behind a series of carved animal bushes right as Leo arrived at the hotel. "I hope you've got them under control this time," she said. "A new guest arrives this afternoon, thanks to me. We're actually booking some of the outrageously expensive rooms." It was true that the Whippet usually had few guests besides the 3 long stays, but things had indeed picked up a bit in Merganser's absence. Miss Sparks seemed unable to help singing her own praises as she stared down at Betty with a sour look on her face. Mr. Whippet didn't know the first thing about internet marketing. "It's the new frontier. Just keep Betty happy and we'll be fine. The last thing we need is the daughter of an oil tycoon getting bitten by a duck." Miss Sparks brushed past Remy without a word, flicking a tiny feather off the shoulder of his red jacket as she passed by. Leo stopped short this time and put out his hand. "I'm Leo. I guess you're Remy?" "Oh, I know who you are," Remy replied. "My mom told me everything about this place. You and your dad keep it running." Remy shook Leo's hand enthusiastically like he'd stood too long at the door and had pent-up energy ready to burn. "Remy, that's an odd name," said Leo. "Short for Remington?" Remy shook his head a little and said a little too loudly, "Short for Remilio. That was my mom's dad, but only my mom calls me that now. I like Remy." "Okay, Remy, well, I gotta go." Leo was dying to get back to the box. "Have fun hanging out with Miss Sparks." Remy gave Leo a look that said, "Yeah, she's a barrel of laughs," then leaned in close to his new friend and whispered, "Whatever it is, it's got your name on it." "What does?" asked Leo. But Remy wouldn't answer, as Miss Sparks looked up and glared like she might glue their mouths shut. Leo didn't want a repeat of what had happened an hour before in the lobby, so he kept marching with Merganser's walking stick until he reached the duck elevator, ignoring Remy's strange comment. The miniature elevator wasn't parked on the roof as he'd expected. Someone had called it back down to the lobby. He turned back at Remy, who smiled knowingly. Uh-oh. Remy didn't know much about the hotel. He was new and landlocked in the lobby, but he had managed to discover something secret in the duck elevator while Miss Sparks was out at the gate and walking on the grounds. Leo opened the duck elevator and crawled inside, where he found that Remy was right. The purple box didn't have Merganser's head on it. There were 2 words on the box as well. The purple box didn't just have Merganser's head on it. There were 2 words on the box as well. Words that had been covered by a feather before, but were now clear as day. For Leo. Bernard sat in the backseat of the black town car as Milton raced through town, speeding past yellow cabs on an errand of the highest importance. I think this will do just fine, Bernard said as he watched the world race by. Wouldn't you agree? Oh, yes, said Milton, pulling to a stop at a red light and staring into the rearview mirror. I think we've got the right person for the job. Let's hope so. Milton rifled through his silver briefcase and removed a file folder. The files you were asking about? This is the first. It wasn't easy to find, let me tell you. Thank you, Milton. I do believe this is going to turn out marvelously. Bernard Frescobaldi took the folder as the car lurched forward. They would be driving for a while. Plenty of time to read more about Merganser D. Whippet. Bernard knew he had to understand the man's past in order to complete his plan. There were clues here, he was sure. He knew how rare these documents were, how hard they must have been to find. They could prove useless in the end, these old papers, but they could also reveal a clue that would help him get what he wanted. Merganser D. Whippet, upon my father's death. I will not date these entries, for dates have only marked bad things in my life. I vow never to think of dates and days and time again. Here are some reasons why. My mother died when I was 4, a very bad day. I have many memories of her, though I've never written any of them down. That must change. My father sent me to boarding school when I was a little bit bigger, also a bad day. There were other things in between when I wished my father would notice me, but he never did. On one of those days I made stilts that bounced up and down on springs. My first good invention, which my father ignored. They poked holes in the ceiling of my room, but what did it matter? My father had thousands of ceilings all over the city in all of his fancy hotels. Couldn't he do with one ceiling that had holes in it? And finally there is today, the day my father died. He leaves with me 2 things, $1 billion fortune and a final verdict. I will make wacky things and I will be good at it. A treasure and a curse, I suppose, but I am left with one thing more, something I don't think my father meant to leave behind. I have a feeling it will matter most. M.D.W. Notation about my mother. She loves rings. I must make an effort to find all the rings I can. Bernard searched the sky with his dancing eyes, nodding his head with reassurance as he closed the folder. He had big plans for the hotel and the vast land it sat on, and more information than anyone else who might be trying to bring these things under their control. What are you hiding, Mr. Whippet? He asked. And that was the end of chapter 2. As a special treat today, and since we have more time for today's reading, I'm going to be reading chapter 3. Mr. Powell explains the rules. Let's get started. The elevator had been so crammed with ducks on the way up to the roof that Leo couldn't properly examine the purple box. He'd counted the minutes while the elevator rose ever so slowly. Betty had always had held a sideways gaze on Leo, like she was sure he was hiding more snacks, and now he felt glad to be going back down, alone at last, with a box that had his name on it. There were many ways into the maintenance tunnels of the Whippet Hotel, one of which required stopping between floors in the duck elevator. This Leo did, pulling the lever to the middle position just 2 minutes into the ride. The duck elevator stopped, and Leo turned a latch on the roof, popping it open to the shaft above. The opening wasn't very big, but it was large enough for Leo to slide the wooden box through and set it carefully to the side. Leo climbed through the opening as well and realized he'd stopped late. The round hole to the maintenance tunnel was almost out of reach, but not quite. Leo stretched up and pushed the purple box into the darkness of the tunnel. His walkie-talkie squawked to life. Leo, come in. You there? It was his father. Leo's heart sank. He pulled the walkie-talkie from its latch and clicked the red button. Yeah, I'm here, coming down from the roof. He stared up at the large hole and wished he hadn't once again let the box out of his sight. New short stays on 6 say the AC is out, his father reported. Can you double back? Leo rolled his eyes. The air conditioning on the 6th floor worked fine. It's just an unusual way of turning on that Miss Sparks never wanted to explain. I'm on it. Give me 5. Perfect. After that, head over to the water leak in tunnel number 8. I'll be there working on the pipes. See you when I get there, said Leo. He was between floors 4 and 5, but there were ladders he could use in the tunnel system to get where he needed to go. Best to stay with the box if he could, so he didn't lose it. Leo reached down into the elevator and pulled up on the lever, feeling himself move slowly upwards. When the opening to the maintenance tunnel was a foot away, he jumped in. Turning back, Leo flipped the top shut on the elevator and heard it snap closed, then watched it go by on its way back to the roof. Finally, he had a chance to sit in the light of the twisting tunnels and get a look inside the box. It took only a moment for Leo to discover he could slide off the top, which he did. What he saw made him gasp with delight. "Where in the world is this place?" he whispered to himself, looking inside the box. It was sort of like staring into a house with the roof torn off. There were walls and rooms and curves, and he could peer inside and see it all. From the top, the walls made a rat's maze of 5 circles, each circle smaller than the last. There were round rooms inside too, growing smaller as they neared the center. Closer and closer to the center of the circles went, but that wasn't all. All the pathways were filled with brightly colored hoops of different shapes and sizes, turned at different angles. It was a marvel of ingenuity, intricate and perfect, and yet totally wacky. Is it a ring of rooms or a room of rings? Leo wondered. I think it must be both at once. How odd. Leo was leaning in for a closer inspection, pointing his standard issue flashlight into the purple box when his walkie-talkie came to life again. This time it was Miss Sparks. She was cranky. "Leo Fillmore, if you're hiding in the building, pick up now!" He wanted desperately to turn off the walkie-talkie and figure out what the room of rings or the ring of rooms was supposed to mean. Why on earth had it shown up in a box with his name on it? Leo pushed the button on his walkie-talkie. "I'm heading to 6 now, just need a few minutes more." "You haven't fixed the AC problem yet?" yelled Miss Sparks, her voice bouncing off the tunnel walls. "Do you realize who's in there? He's worth about $1 zillion, and his daughter gets very cranky in the heat. If she's cranky, he's cranky. Get on it, Fillmore." "Almost there," Leo said. "And get back to the lobby the moment you're done. Remy needs a bathroom break, and you need to watch the door. There's been too much mischief around here lately." What did she mean by mischief? Was it the black town car, or the ducks in the lobby, or something else? Whatever the reason, Miss Sparks was on the alert, and Leo took that as a bad sign. He couldn't believe how busy his day was getting. AC units, water pipes, door duty, duck walking. His head was spinning as he grabbed the purple lid and saw what he hadn't seen before. On the other side was taped a fancy envelope. A message had been written above the envelope on the wood of the box itself, in Morganser's big and round writing, which Leo recognized instantly. "Floor and 3 1/2. Strike the purple ball in the kitchen by the hall 3 times fast. Duck! And bring the ball. You'll need it." Leo felt an immediate sense of goodwill and comfort. Morganser D. Whippet only spoke in such strange turns of phrases when he was at his happiest, like when they were flying up the double helix and he would scream, "Dancing sharks go jumping, Bob!" Mr. Whippet was the smartest man Leo had ever met most of the time, but his happiness brought out a wild glee that tumbled out of his mouth like candy. "Floor and 3 1/2 had an authentic Whippet ring to it. "Leo!" Miss Sparks screamed into the walkie-talkie. Leo turned the volume dial down, her voice growing quieter as if she were falling down an elevator shaft. He turned his attention to the fancy envelope, carefully pulling it free from the lid of the purple box. Time stood still for Leo as he opened and read the note. No thoughts of a zillionaire with a cranky daughter, no Miss Sparks or leaky pipes. There was only the letter in the box. "Young Mr. Fillmore, if you are in receipt of this letter, then Mr. Whippet has been gone for exactly 100 days. As his longtime personal friend and attorney, I have been instructed to set things in motion. I am only allowed to tell you 4 things. There are 4 boxes, all of which must be found. There are 2 days, including this one. That is all the time you have. You may enlist the help of only one other, preferably a child. Always bring a duck if you can. They are more useful than you know. If you can't find a duck, bring a friend. Never go it alone. Don't fail, young Mr. Fillmore, for if you do, the Whippet Hotel and all it stands for will come to an end. Only you can save the Whippet now. He's counting on you to set things right. Thoughtfully yours, George Powell, Attorney at Law, 1 Park Avenue West, 44th floor, door number 4, New York, New York." Leo felt the weight of the entire hotel resting on his shoulders. Was it really up to him, a 10-year-old boy, to save the hotel? And what did 4 weird boxes have to do with saving a hotel anyway? He looked at the walkie-talkie, the red light blinking on and off. Miss Sparks or his father, no doubt. He had stayed too long exploring the purple box of rings. Leo put the fancy envelope and the letter in the front pocket of his overalls and started to put the lid back on the box. As he did, he heard his father's voice echoing down the maintenance tunnel. "Leo, you there?" Leo slid the cover of the box quietly until it was firmly back in place. Then he picked it up, searching for a place to hide it before his father came lumbering around the corner. The tunnel was narrow but tall, filled with all sorts of pipes and meters, and it snaked all the way around the building in a complete circle. This was one of the oddities of the Whippet Hotel. It was true there were 9 floors, but there was a lot of space between each floor. The tunnels ran all through many of those sections, with ladder tubes here and there between the floors the guests stayed on. Leo had long since memorized every nook and cranny of the tunnel system, and one thing was abundantly clear. There was no place to hide a purple box where his father would not see it. Leo looked in every direction and realized he had only one choice if he wanted to keep the secret safe. By the time Clarence Fillmore arrived at the small round opening that led to the duct elevator, his son was gone. And so was the box. Carrying a box down a ladder is easier said than done, and Leo nearly dropped it more than once as he descended from the 5th floor to the 4th. He wound his way through the 4th floor tunnel lined with pipes, some of them shooting steam with a loud hissing sound as he passed by. Another hole with a ladder appeared, and down he went again, arriving in the maintenance tunnel on the 3rd floor. 5 minutes later, he arrived back in the basement boiler room, where he tucked the purple box under his cot for safekeeping. He was already out of breath, but he climbed all the way back up to the 6th in order to set the AC that Miss Sparks couldn't figure out. "Don't tell me you didn't have a signal," Miss Sparks screamed when he finally returned to the lobby, her beehive cone of hair dancing back and forth over his head. Remy nearly peed his pants. Leo couldn't understand why she hadn't let Remy leave for what would amount to a 2-minute break, but he wasn't about to ask her in the mood she was in. "And you took forever fixing the air conditioning on 6, Miss Sparks continued as Remy hopped off in the direction of the bathroom. "What if the Yanceys decide they don't want to stay here at all? What then? How do you think Mr. Whippet would feel about that when he gets back? Well, say something." Leo cleared his throat. He hadn't caught the name of the girl or her parents as he flipped the AC switch up, down, and up again, then turned the temperature dial all the way to 0 and back to 66. Once it had turned on, the girl plunked down in front of the cold air and stared at Leo like he was a pile of stinky dirt. "You know, Miss Sparks, the AC unit in that room isn't so complicated. Should I explain it to you one more time?" Miss Sparks' face looked like she was trying to make fireworks shoot out of her ears. She hated it when she couldn't figure out how the hotel worked, which was practically all the time. "I'm writing you up, Leo Fillmore. Don't say I didn't warn you." Being written up by Miss Sparks had an uncertain meaning. Leo had been written up dozens of times, but where these write-ups went was a mystery. He had a feeling they went into her desk as evidence for a future trial of his skills and character at a time of her choosing. When Remy zipped back through the lobby looking relieved, Miss Sparks was on the phone having a long conversation with Miss Pompadour about where to get the best hats in Manhattan. "Thanks, Leo, I needed that," Remy sighed. "Did you meet the zillionaire's daughter? She's a real charmer." "I fixed the air conditioning, which seemed to make her happy." Leo kept his voice to a whisper and signaled Remy to do the same, but the smaller boy adjusted the red pants and bow tie of his uniform and tried to play it cool. "But I think that little kid is going to give us some trouble. She's a cranky 6-year-old and she's bored. Bad combo." "I hear you, man." The zillionaire's kid was named Jane Yancey, and Remy ticked off her attributes on his fingers. Jane Yancey, 6 years old, bored, spoiled, supersize, bad combo. "Listen, Remy, I might need your help on a few things this week. Can I count on you?" Remy's face lit up. He was dying to escape the company of Miss Sparks and explore the Whippet Hotel. "Does it have anything to do with that box? The purple one?" Remy was curious, but he was also new to the hotel. Leo could use this to his advantage. "Nah, it's just something I used to work with ducks." "Oh, right, like duck food and stuff." "Right, duck food." Remy was all smiles. "Anything I can do that gets me away from this door, I'm in. Just say the word." Leo was starting to think this might work out okay. Having a go-to guy to cover for him in a pinch could really come in handy. He'd brought his knapsack full of hotel tools with him and opened it up just as Miss Sparks covered the receiver and yelled across the lobby, "Don't you have some pipes to fix?" "Yes, ma'am, I'm on my way." "Good. Stop on floor 3 on the way." Heinie did a hoo-hoo. "Who calls a dog poop a hoo-hoo?" Remy whispered, shaking his head. "Take this," Leo said, handing Remy one of 2 small radios he'd picked up weeks ago from a street vendor. "I've got one too, and both are set to frequency number 4. If you hear a little beep, it's me." Remy's eyes grew big and he smiled at Leo. "Partners?" he dared to ask. "Partners," said Leo. And that is the end of chapter 3. I'm going to bookmark chapter 4 for us to read next time. I hope you guys enjoyed the next installment of Floors, and I hope that you will join me again next time. Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye!